Well, as a Canadian, I feel it only proper to have a few French albums on my review list, so let's dive into this next one.
Sans derrière eux, un chemin immaculé sur des milliers de lieues.
Saison by Lazuli? Lazuli? Really going to butcher most of these pronunciations. I took French all throughout high school. Well, that's a lie. I took it in grade 9. So, I am not going to attempt to pronounce any of these song titles. I'm just going to refer to the songs as the tracks that they are. We've got 8 tracks, which kind of makes sense because this is Saison 8. So yeah, so this band of Lazuli is a French progressive rock band, taking the techniques and the styles from the 70s progressive rock. It is a little bit more on the modern side as well, like it isn't just straight up a flashback of the 70s. They're able to incorporate that style, but present it in a more modern tone. And right off the get-go, this album really surprised me. Like, this is the first time that I've heard this band, as with many of the artists that I had covered recently. This was one of the few albums that was also recommended to me when I kind of did a Facebook Twitter blast of, I haven't really heard any real good albums from 2018, so hit me up with some of your suggestions, and this was one of those suggestions, and I'm very pleased about this one. Right off the get-go, it hit me pretty hard with the first track. And within this first track, it really shows that these guys know how to build up a song properly. And it isn't until probably the halfway mark of like just past the 3-minute where it actually like really brings in the rest of the band, because it starts off very somber with just the lead singer, a little bit of some guitar works, a little bit of a piano works, and then when we get to the 3rd minute, that's when the drums and the bass line kind of hit us within that as well. And I like their ability to really blend and harmonize the vocals and all of the other instruments without being too like fighty over the spotlight. Like each one is able to kind of play within their own little turnstiles, and the music that's presented there is eclectic in some sense, but it's also very familiar. And because they take their time to really develop the song, it doesn't creep up on you. You kind of see where the song is going from that sense, but even though you see where it's going, you're still pleasantly surprised when that big hit occurs. And the one thing that I really want to shout out is how these guys use emotion to convey their meanings. Like, I have no idea what this guy is saying just because it's in French. Getting some kind of an idea of what the singer is actually singing about just through the emotion of the music itself is very well presented. And I know that this is something that French culture really embraces when they present their art. Like, it's very emotional first. It's very kind of putting ideas that are very abstract concepts into a concrete item, either within their work, within their art, within their music, and this is definitely felt here as well, and that is kind of felt within the second track as well. Like, even with that little punctuations of the guitars, like the plucking of the strings to permeate a little bit of the grounding, and it pushes us through, and so you kind of get a sense of what the song is talking about without any words at that point. And I like how within the second track we have a little bit more of like this darkness that's coming up within the root of the song. Like, there's a little bit of a darker tone within the bass line, and that helps really like solidify that song, like that dun, 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 dun. Like it reminds me of something, and I can't put my finger on it, but it just hunkers into your skin. You're like, And the third track actually feels like a very modern track, like almost from the 90s, like the acoustic guitar coming in within the rest of the song. Like, it feels something from like the late 90s kind of grungy tracks where it's not only acoustical with the lead, I want to almost say it's a 12-string guitar, but there's a lot of like other sounds in that from the other guitar work. Again, feels very 90s, and not in a like a rehashed, but in a rejuvenizing kind of a sense. But my favorite song is the fourth track. I love this track. I like how dark it is, and I mentioned the darkness within the second track, but this is the one that really brings it because it's a subtle darkness, and it's playing around more of like an innocent playing style, and that combination of an innocent playing in a darker tone provides such a creepy atmosphere that has otherwise been a very positive and a very optimistic kind of a sound within the past couple of tracks. This one provides such a really strange dance, and I love it. And that indie play out when we have that snare drum, that Like it builds up the track and it really gets us in. So when we get to that final play out, it envelops the sound and it really hits it really hard. So that kind of takes care of the first half, and in my mind it's the first side of the album. Then I kind of take a little bit of a break, flip the side over, and put the needle back down onto the fifth track. And I feel within the second side, or the second half of this album, it feels much more experimental. Like they're definitely trying different territories and trying different styles within this. And within the fifth track there's a lot of stop and goes, and in that sense it's a little bit of a hesitant track. Like it's testing the waters in certain sense and then bringing it back, and testing the waters in another sense and then bringing it back again. And that hesitant exploration of the sound provides a really interesting environment for the listener to be in. The sixth track, it feels very much like the third track. It doesn't really cover too much new ground there, so it is a little bit on the forgettable side. It's probably the lower point on the album. But that seventh track, like it kind of recaptures that playing style that we had from the fourth track, but again, I'm saying that a lot, the rejuvenization. And I love that singing style, that it reminds me of a track, and just when I re-sang that, and I can't put my finger on it. And that's one of the fun things about this band, is that there's a lot of points on here that I'm like, that sounds like something, I can't put my finger on it. Like, I don't know if I'm just projecting it because it sounds so similar, or if it really is something in the back of my head that I can't put my finger on it. And then the final piece, the eighth track, it closes the curtains down with just kind of a simple ballad with the guitar work. And I think this is a really, really smart move on the band, because a lot of albums lately, I feel like they haven't really finished the album. They just kind of stop it, and this feels finished. Like, this last track brings it all together and brings it all home in a quiet finale, and I think that was a very, very smart move to do. So overall, I was really pleased with this album, and one that I came back to quite a bit. I could see that they still have some room to grow. It's definitely not a perfect album. Like, it is one that there are moments that really blow me away, but I do feel like after I kind of got used to the album, there wasn't a whole lot to really revisit, even though I did revisit it quite a bit. I know I'm contradicting myself there a little bit, but whatever. It's still a great time. I would probably say this is one that you'll want to download. It's one that you'll want to have on your computer. It's one that I thoroughly enjoyed having on my computer, and it is one that I have a feeling that I'll be revisiting throughout the year. It's not one that I'm going to have on repeat, but it is one that I'm going to revisit. That's probably the best way to put it. So that's about it from Saison 8, or Season 8, from Lazuli. I hope I pronounced all that right. I know I can't pronounce to save my life. But what did you guys think? How does it stack up to their past discography, and how did you like this one? Let me know of your own thoughts about this album by commenting down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.
Avec dans la caboche aucune notion du vent. Ce vent qui lisse la surface, qui dissipe les doutes, qui balaye les traces de nos pas sur la